you remember Jim Vance had this life's little book of rules. You remember that?
I had forgotten about that.
He had
Yes.
this little life's book of rules, and every once in a while he'd take the thing out and he'd quote one at you.
Yeah.
And the one, I don't remember many of them. It changed with the world or it'll change without you was one of them. And he had that printed and put on his wall.
Yeah.
But the only other one that I remember is resist the temptation to buy a boat.
He doesn't seem like a boat kind of guy anyway, unless it was a yacht, with captain,
But I don't, I didn't ever see Jim again after I left. I saw Blaine on occasion.
Yeah.
Every time I come back, I'd make a point to see him Blaine.
Yeah.
And so I saw him, and I saw him get much older. Because I remember him in his 60s, and then I remember him in his 70s, and I remember him in his 80s just before he died.
Yeah.
And I love Blaine. I just absolutely love Blaine.
Oh yeah, I do too.
But I never saw Jim again.
I ran into Jim, because we ran in the same circles, and he knew as much about bed ruffles and glassware as I did. Really, he liked pretty things.
Yeah.
And so we ran into the same circles with the curtain and furniture people in Duncan.
Yeah.
And so I ran into him that way, but I'll just never forget going to meetings all over the ascog area, and all the women, they were like, Jim is your boss, right? And oh, he's so pretty. That's what they would all say. They would give me little gifts to take back to him.
Well, he was divorced, and he was absolutely determined to never marry again.
I know.
He had some.
He had girlfriends, but he wasn't going to get married.
Yeah, he had some really, rather impressive looking girlfriends.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
He's like, well, all right, man.
He was a good-looking man, and he was smart and charming. He had it going on.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to his house?
No, I don't think I ever did.
It was so over the top.
Huh.
You would have thought a fancy little old lady lived there. It was a Cape Cod with a picket fence, English garden all the way around, fountain, gazebo in the back, and he had to go through all this stuff to get that gazebo with the zoning.
He lived the way that he wanted to live.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. Antiques everywhere, a neon sign.
I would hate it. Oh my God, I would hate it.
I loved it. I threw a fit over his house because we had the same taste,
Yeah.
And like I said, that's how we bumped into each other. I'd see him at estate auctions and stuff like that. But he had a surgery, and he never told anybody what it was. He wasn't. It wasn't something to save him from a terminal illness, but he had some kind of serious surgery.
Yeah.
Was off for a little while, and I went to see him at his house. He loved my no-bake cookies.
Well, that's good.
And so I took him some of those.
Yeah.
And
I knew that when we hired you, I knew that you'd get along with him because he likes beautiful women.
Well, I was hoping that he would realize I had something to offer.
Oh yeah.
As far as the programs.
He didn't have it in his head that women were incapable. He just preferred to have good-looking women around him. And when Nadine left and the planner position came open and I applied for it, this really beautiful woman came in and got the position. And she left 2 years later. She got pregnant, and then I got the position. But I remember somebody saying to me, you look at the legs on her, you never had a chance.
Oh. Well, I guess it doesn't hurt if you have that asset. I thought my resume was pretty impressive, actually. And it was that we had grantees that were making more than I was.
Yeah, they had actually managed to bump me when I was in the information referral specialist. Before I got the planner job, they bumped me to a hybrid position, information specialist and aging specialist.
Yes.
And they made that a hybrid position so that they could keep me on. And they knew, Jim at that point knew that he was going to put me in the planner position. As soon as, I can't remember, Amanda. As soon as Amanda left, he knew he was going to put me in that planner position. So he bumped me up for like about 6 months. And in part, that was so that we could attract better qualified people to that position, which we hired can't remember his last name. His first name was David. And he was reasonably intelligent, got along. He was an older guy, considerably older than me. I think he was like in his early 60s. But it turned out he was, fond of the bottle. And, eventually he didn't work out. And then I think you were the next person we hired in.
Valerie.
There was Valerie.
Valerie was before me.
Yeah, Valerie.
Jim fired her.
God. Hey, that woman had a pair of legs, and she also had a head that turned 360 degrees on her shoulders.
I never knew what she did wrong. Jim just told me that he fired her. And I said, you know what? I didn't know ascog ever fired anybody. And he said she wanted to be fired.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, well she did.
Well, he never gave me any details. He just said she wanted to be fired.
I remember him saying, "Don't you dare sleep with her." And I was like, "Are you kidding? This is a person whose head turns 360 degrees on her shoulders." He said, "Yeah, don't you dare sleep with her." But yeah, she was a good-looking woman, and we both knew instantly, heebie-jeebies. This is don't touch that with a 10-foot pole, and after that, she started throwing screaming fits, and
as flattering as it might be, you got to sit there and think, why?
Why
is she interested in me?
It's just
she wanted to live off a lawsuit.
She probably pulled it off somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised if she eventually managed it, but she was half nuts too, and she would go on these massive tirades. And she would walk into his office and just let him have it with both barrels. And he finally, he just kept a record of everything, wrote everything down, and told me to do it. And I did the same thing. I wrote everything down. And eventually we had enough that we could get rid of her. But I had suppressed it.
Did you repress that?
I had repressed that memory until you brought it up.
It just popped into my mind, Valerie and Jim saying.
Yeah, she didn't last real long with us. I think she was with us like about maybe 6 or 7 months.
Well, no wonder he was so surprised with me then, because I was the overachiever and I was doing all this stuff that I didn't even have to do.
Well, and I
had
had given you a glowing recommendation. I wanted you in that job, and for another reason that I wanted you there was because I had been for a while knowing that I was going to go. And I was applying for other jobs, and I wanted somebody who could take my place. I wanted to groom a successor. I wanted somebody to be able to take it and know that when I left, they were going to be in good hands. And so I gave him a glowing recommendation of you, and I also said, this is a person, who could take my job when I go, because he knew that I was looking. And it took me a year and a half to find a job, but it took a long time. But when I finally eventually did, I was glad to have you there because I was really wanting somebody who could handle what I did. And of course the entire time I trained you, helped train you to do your job, but I was really kind of training you to do mine.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a fun job. It just didn't.
Yeah. It just
and
didn't
I learned
pay
so many
well.
things, and it just didn't pay enough. And
it was great experience.
It was.
It was great experience.
Invaluable experience.
Oh yeah.
But when Marsha offered me a job in her division, she poached me. We were friends.
Mm-hmm. Marsha's great. I love her.
She took me out to lunch, and she said,
she was probably the best friend I had there until you showed up.
Oh yeah, she was a sweet lady.
Oh yeah.
She said, I don't know how much money you're making,
but I can double it.
but I can pay you a lot more.
Yeah, she probably just about doubled it.
And it was a lot more. And I said, how much more? And she told me. And I said, when can I start?
Yeah, that's right.
When can I start?
Yeah. So it was like, well, that didn't work very well.
Right. Oh, Jim.
and I adored Jim. I got along really well.
He was a sweet man. He was good to me.
Yeah. He was good to me too. He treated me like a son. He was, he always said, "Son, now don't you do." He always called me that. "Son, now don't you do this." He says, "Son, don't you ever make the mistake that I made. Share not thy rod with thy staff."
Oh, that.